It was a poker game with my husband. The woman was so tired that she slept straight through 3 days and 3 nights. Fresh out of prison, Lincoln tries to wake up this sleeping beauty. But the woman suddenly rose up and gave him a big pussyfooting. Yeah, I said leave me alone. The sudden reaction shocked the woman herself. She immediately realized that something was wrong with her body. But within a few days of arriving at the hospital, a woman suddenly feels a strange itch in the place where she got in for. I was about to scratch a few times when I realized I had a big bump on my arm. What's even scarier is that there are countless bugs running out of it. It's obvious the woman is hallucinating. It means she's further aggravated. Depending on the woman's symptoms, House thinks she might have African trypanosomiasis. But neither husband nor wife has ever traveled abroad, not to mention the tropics. But whatever the problem is, it's definitely in the brain. That's when Wilson asked the question, did you check your breasts? Amen. It could be paraneoplastic syndrome, because a woman's mother died of breast cancer. It's possible she's got a family history. But Lincoln couldn't understand why breast cancer would cause brain problems. Kamei explains, brain cells and tumor cells are very similar in structure. Thus antibodies in the body fight tumor cells it'll hurt the brain cells. So Karma took the woman for a mammogram, but there was no sign of a tumor. That puts House's team at an impasse again. If it's not breast cancer, it could be poisoning. But it looks like the couple is very much in love. It can't be the husband who poisoned his wife. Then it's probably at work. So House sent Blackie to check out the woman's place of work. And he's got his own clinic to finish today. This beautiful woman says she's always feeling chesty and short of breath. But she never smoked and she loved working out. Atanasio, Hauser checked her out and sent her for an EKG. Executive Pradyayat Nasai House checked her out and sent her for an EKG. House checked her out and sent her for an EKG. The woman asks if she needs to take her clothes off. The woman asks if she needs to take her clothes off. But before House could answer, she ripped her clothes off on the spot. Written by Fomazel Moran, she ripped her clothes off on the spot. Written by Homazel.Mork and other Hus turned back. Written by Ihomazel. Moral, a blood-splattering view left him frozen in his tracks. A blood-curdling view that left him frozen in his tracks. But the woman's towering peak made House ask questions. Is it true? Does it look like it? It looks good. The woman said it was a gift for her husband's 40th birthday. House, while lamenting what man is so well off. While dialing for Dr. Wilson. Directed by Brian Spicker. While dialing for Dr. Wilson. Directed by Brian Spicer. After all, I can't own the view, but I can invite you to enjoy it. After all, I can't own the scenery, but I can invite you to enjoy it. As an expert in this field, Wilson says women's symptoms have nothing to do with breast implants, or the boobs are fake, but the love for your husband is real. Just as the two were having a medical discussion, the dean of the faculty approached. She's curious about a patient who's breathing heavily. Why do you need 2 department heads to consult with you? Does a bigger cup mean more complications? It's better if you don't ask. As soon as I asked House to be more serious, he said, not only an EKG, but a blood test and a tox screen. You're using the inspection as a cover for your lustful nature. Enjoyable. It's a tough case. To the other side, Blackie was ordered to come to the restaurant where the sleepy woman works. Her woman's been working here for 3 years. But this back room is cleaner than some hospitals. And no one else is showing similar symptoms. Blackie got nothing but a piece of rabbit on the table. He suspects the woman has rabbit fever. But free fever should have respiratory symptoms, and the woman doesn't. In order to further define, 3 assistants started a fever immunization test, and the woman with the breast implants came back to House with the results of the test. The EKG shows her heart rate slowing down, but instead of explaining, House asked her husband if he had high blood pressure. Woman replied her husband did have high blood pressure 6 months ago, and I've been taking antihypertensive medication. After learning that the woman's husband makes her breakfast every day, House told the truth about her shortness of breath. It turns out that one of the most common side effects of antihypertensive drugs is a decrease in libido. Husband has been taking pills for 6 months, and now he can't satisfy his wife. I had to sneak a blood pressure pill into her breakfast to expect a woman's heart to be the same as his. The sad thing is, a woman gets breast implants because she thinks she's not attracted to her husband. I don't want my husband to be able to do anything about it. Finally, the woman asked House what she should do. House replied after a moment's serious reflection that, buy some condoms, go to a bar, find. At that point, he suddenly realized something. Find the assistants who are still working on the experiment. Tell them the sleeping woman could have African trypanosomiasis. Because the disease is not transmitted through blood, it can also be spread through two-person sports. Since the woman has never had a blood transfusion, then there's only one answer. A woman and her husband are cheating on each other. So Blackie and Kais questioned the couple separately, but both couples swore up and down that they never had an affair, that they love each other with all their hearts. How could you do anything to dishonor your other half? Oh well, in that case, there's nothing House can do. We'll just have to follow what Blackie said about rabbit fever. However, when Kame injects women with drugs at night, the woman suddenly fainted as she spoke. Pulse and blood pressure are normal, but they don't respond to pain. TCO. C1 if ads on the indices on the instrument are also all normal. She's in a coma. If it's rabbit fever. Or women don't go into a coma after injecting drugs. Now, having ruled out all possibilities, all that's left is the African bug. House checked it out and told Lincoln, the drugs used to treat African trypanosomiasis 10% lethal. But without treatment, a woman's life is at an end. Although Lincoln never believed that his wife would cheat on him, but we can't give up any chance of saving her. So he signed a consent form for House to be treated for African trypanosomiasis. But it also puts Lincoln in a dilemma. If the wife wakes up, it'll be proof of her betrayal. Instead, he lost his wife forever. In his ambivalence, he hoped his wife wouldn't wake up. Or this puzzles Kame to no end. Since they love each other so much, can't you forgive a mistake? Am I a bad person? The next day, House found a moody Carmel, turning around with eyes red from crying. Turns out Carmine got married in college, but the marriage only lasted 6 months because her husband died of thyroid cancer. She was 21 years old when she had to watch her husband die. House expresses sadness but points out it's not the root cause of Carmine's sadness, because thyroid cancer can be diagnosed at least a year in advance, which means that Carmel chose to marry her husband even though she knew he was going to die. This is a girl with a good heart who believes in love. Just then House's pager got a message. When they arrived at the ward, a stony-faced Black shook his head at them. The woman's condition has worsened rather than improved. And when Lincoln learned of this, I couldn't help but come to my wife's side and cry. The grief may be mixed with the guilt of suspecting his wife of cheating on him. And yet, to no one's surprise, it was as if the woman heard her husband's call. She's awake, but it's a sad story. Although the woman's life was saved, but it also proves that she did have an affair. Lincoln and his wife had a deep conversation. He took his bag and left without looking back, leaving a grieving wife in her hospital bed with a lot of remorse. And it reaffirms what House has always been known for. Patients never tell the truth. To stop the continued spread of infectious diseases, House needs to know who that man is. Carmine came to me with the man's address. I met a little boy at the door playing with toys. Do you know where your father is? Turns out this guy was a good friend of Lincoln's. No wonder he couldn't forgive his wife and left. A friend's wife is not to be bullied.